Yes, it's time to talk about this year in Pride, where one of the most contentious topics that has been going on for quite a while now is Drag Queen Story Hour, and a lot of other things going on with Pride, as you would expect, the typical degenerate sort of stuff that we have all come to just sort of expect at this point, let's be honest. It's quite sad that we see all of this stuff going on with our children and we just go, business as usual. But before we go any further, you should go onto the website and check out our recent premium contemplations that Josh did with Bo, talking about what makes good art. People say that drag queen performances are art, and I'm sure that Josh and Bo will be able to help you to understand whether it would be good art or not. Well, there's your simple answer, but I recommend checking it out anyway. Yes. Don't spoil all of the surprises.
If we're fighting a culture war, we've got to know the culture that we're protecting, and being familiar with the arts and what makes good art is one of those key questions that you need to answer to do so, and I would suggest you check it out.
Yeah. But without any further ado, let's take a look at some of the stories around that have come out around this time of year, around Pride, that relate to the whole LGBT movement as it stands right now, and the worrying trends that a few people have started to notice. Well, have been crying out about for years now, but is only just really getting mainstream attention. So, for instance, a queer academic has suggested that paedophilia be taught to schools as an innate sexuality, according to this headline. Let's take a deeper look at this article here. So, a professor of ethics at Oslo Metropolitan University in Norway.
Professor of ethics is always
the professors of ethics. I've covered a few people like this in the past. Every single one of them have been professors of ethics.
Wasn't that guy who attacked someone with a bike lock in a sock a professor of ethics, or was it on a chain or something like that?
The Berkeley bike lock assailant.
Yes.
Yes, I think he was a professor of ethics as well, you know.
So if you study ethics, it will teach you how to commit atrocities.
Yeah, it'll teach you to rationalise your awful opinions and your awful actions to other people. Well, I'll carry on. So he has called to legalise AI-generated child pornography, claiming that paedophilia should be seen as an innate sexuality that requires destigmatization. Now, as a psychologist, would you suggest that if people were to people with these proclivities were to consume AI-generated child pornography, would that subdue their proclivities, or would that potentially encourage them to seek out the real thing, or even create the real thing, would you say?
Well, I'm not too familiar with any direct research on that, but my kind of gut instinct is it's probably not going to help that much. And the whole thing of having to design that so people can, sate their urge rather than
what is the AI going? Because like most AIs, they like study what's already available on the internet to be able to generate algorithms and such. So what is it going to have to study to be able to generate this stuff?
I would question who would ever want to work on creating an AI that would do that as well.
Yeah.
Because
and I think the morality of having something like that exist in the first place is morally questionable at best.
I mean, calling it a sexuality as well is a bit weird. To say it's innate, I mean, fair enough. That just means that someone's born with something and they can't necessarily change it. It's dictated by biology. That could be true. It seems to me that that there have been studies where even after chemical castration, there's still this attraction there that's present within these paedophiles, and
it's not something we want to be encouraging. It's certainly not anything we want to be broadening the acceptable terms to be
anything that's a step towards being accepting of it is a step too far, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's an illness and should be treated as in the same sort of way that, like, I don't know, a murderous psychopath would be treated. As far as I'm concerned, this guy, I also looked him up. He also has a book from 2018 called Pedophilia and Computer-Generated Child Pornography. So this is something that's been on his mind for a while right now. I don't know what it is about studying ethics that makes you just accepting of paedophiles, but, be warned, everybody out there. Ole Martin Moen, a gay man who identifies as queer, currently serves as a member of the advisory board on Norway's patient organisation for gender incongruence, a social and political lobby group for trans rights. It always circles back to these sorts of movements, doesn't it? And it carries on. According to their official website, PKI's purpose is to provide access to gender-affirming treatment to the public, regardless of factors like non-binary identity, sexual practice, or having other diagnoses. Moen has also served as an academic counsel at Civita, Norway's largest liberal think tank since 2015. So what they're saying there is it doesn't matter if you've not got gender dysphoria, it doesn't matter if you've not got any sort of mental illness. As long as you just say you're the other gender, we need to affirm it. And they're trying to lobby for that in Norway, which is always great. So if they're not trying to create AI-generated visions of your child in terrible situations, they're trying to put your child in actual terrible situations, because of course. And, oh God, it says here, pedophilia is bad, but how bad is it? And in what ways and for what reasons is it bad? He wrote in a 2015 paper called The Ethics of Pedophilia, which was then republished in 2018. In this paper, it is argued that pedophilia is bad only because and only to the extent that it causes harm to children, and that pedophilia itself, as well as pedophilic expressions and practices that do not cause harm to children, are morally all right. That's the abstract.
Well, there's clearly some abnormality
Well,
there,
yes.
isn't there? It's not just, oh, it's all fine as long as they don't predate on children. Well, no, because, you know, a normal person is attracted to someone their own age.
Or at least of mature age.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I would say those sorts of desires are showing that there is something deeply sick and twisted inside of you. Because, like you say, we're not normally biologically programmed to be attracted to small, prepubescent children. And that
normally
is
what
disgusting.
happens is that they themselves have been abused, and then there's this cycle of abuse that happens where it becomes, I hate to use the word, normalized, but it becomes normalized in their own minds, and therefore they see less moral repugnance in doing so themselves.
Very interesting. But that's just that little one. Let's carry on and take a look at some other stuff that's going on. Of course, we have drag queen story hours, hour flashing at young children, whether intentional or not. This is from 2019, but I have seen these particular images of this drag queen flashing a bunch of children his knickers, going around on Twitter, so it's good to know where exactly this comes from. It comes from something going on at the at a library, I think in Texas or something like that, Hennepin County Library. So drag queens have been asked to participate in Drag Queen Story Hour and events of a similar nature. According to the Hennepin County Libraries, the events promote self-expression, dress-up, and gender fluidity through stories, rhymes, music, and movement with drag performers from around the local community. So they are promoting degenerate lifestyles by inviting degenerates to come and speak to their children. You cannot, and I have said this before, you cannot convince me that there is not some of these drag queens, and I would imagine most of them involved in the story hour, getting off on it. Because drag is an inherently sexual form of style of performance art, because obviously it's men dressing up as women.
Art.
Yeah. They are getting off on it on some sense. So pairing that up with the desire to also basically do some performance like that in front of children, where you're basically an exhibitionist in front of children, whether or not you're reading child-friendly stories, is pretty sus. Pretty sus to me.
I find it weird that have we just run out of children's entertainers? Have we we're just like, oh, you know, we've got this long list of, you know, I suppose children are now scared of clowns, so you can't call them up. But just like, you know,
Well,
what?
are they, or is
get
that just the
get the
stereotype?
drag queen on the phone. That's who you need to entertain kids.
Yeah, listen, I get that Noel Fielding had Mr. Blobby, and Mr. Blobby, yes, was terrifying. You look back and it was like some demonic monster from hell, but it wasn't promoting this kind of message, this kind of ideology, and it also wasn't actively flashing children, whether intentional or not. Once again, if you're in a position where you're reading stories to kids, and you're in the position where if you cross and uncross your legs, you'll be doing a basic instinct to these children, maybe question the choices that have led you there. And then if we carry on, I found this interesting, quite a bit of this actually was taken from stories that were sent in via our tips email. So thank you for those people who sent these in, because they are very interesting. I found this one, which is an interesting clash of cultures from someone posting on Reddit on the Police UK subreddit. And I'll just read through this. Hi all, throwaway account for obvious reasons. Neighbourhoods PC here in a very diverse, usually quiet patch. all the usual drug, booze, ASB incident issues, but having been a silent lurker for a while, I'm pretty sure I have it better than most. Like most forces might have thrown their weight behind Pride Month, and I have zero issues with that. We should reflect the communities we serve, and our HQ is raise the rainbow flag in solidarity with alphabet people. Again, zero issues. So typical sort of police officer that you would expect nowadays. More than happy to go along with the political ideology.
Doesn't want to rock the boat.
Yeah, definitely doesn't want to rock the boat here. But it seems that this situation has developed where he's having to question how well this political ideology meshes with the diversity of England, shall we say. A number of local businesses and organisations and the NHS has followed suit. However, and this is where I've become a bit unstuck, I've been asked to attend a local small business and ask them to remove their pride flag as it is in close proximity to an area populated almost exclusively by devoutly religious people.
I wonder which religious group this will be.
I know. I wonder which religious group could get away with saying we don't like your pride flags around here without being charged with a hate crime, for instance. I wonder which. But yes, these devoutly religious people, many of whom have complained via 101 that the pride flag has caused them offence on religious grounds. Obviously, I have to be careful what I say, but several have raised non-crime hate incidents, and I can't help but feel that those have trickled down from SLT to inspectors and sergeants until on Monday I was asked to visit this business and asked them to remove the flag to prevent further offence. I visited and had a polite chat and brought up the pride flag was causing offence. They laughed and made it clear they weren't going to take it down. Honestly, I can't help but empathise because I too am a good person, trademark. Were you going to say something?
I was just imagining someone calling up the police line and in a sort of gravelly Middle Eastern voice, just like, help, help. They've caused me some offence. It just really makes them out to be clutching their pearls.
Have you ever watched Blazing Saddles?
No, I haven't,
there's an excellent scene in that where he puts a gun to his own head. He's like, help me, help me, help me. Just imagining that. But for the first time in my career, I felt on shaky moral, not to mention legal ground, asking a private business to remove a symbol showing solidarity for a minority community to prevent offence to another minority community. Once again, reinforcing that we know exactly who it is that's complaining about this. Yesterday, I provided an update to SGT. She went away, got advice from further up the chain, and now I've been asked to re-attend the business and advise that if the pride flag isn't removed, the business owner could be committing a hate crime by knowingly causing offence to a local religious community who find the LGBTQ plus lifestyle offensive for their religious beliefs. So, this police officer might be coming to the conclusion that perhaps hate crime laws, an increasingly diverse population, and basically bi-monthly pride celebrations at this point, because we celebrate both English pride and American pride for some
interesting
stupid
here,
reason.
just like in rock, paper, scissors, that paper beats stone. Here,
I wonder who's holding the stones.
yeah, Muslim beats gay, but we already knew that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, dear.
I mean, that just shows the hierarchy, but perhaps all of these obviously contradictory things don't really mesh together particularly well. And then we've got more drag queen stuff where someone sent in that this story about the head of a drag queen story hour having been arrested for possession of child pornography. Is anyone surprised? Are you surprised?
No.
No. Brett Blom, former head of the Cream City, that's a very appropriate name for this, Alphabet Foundation, which runs a drag queen story hour program, was arrested on charges of possession of child pornography. Blom, 38, was taken into custody following an investigation into multiple uploads of child pornography through a Kik messaging application in October and November of 2020. So that is not at all surprising. And we've got plenty of older examples of this stuff as well with the next one that I've got along here, which was a drag queen storytime reader who was once charged with child sexual assault, which was doing a story time at Houston Public Library, who had to apologize after he was allowed to entertain children. The library said that a review revealed that the volunteer never completed a background check before he was allowed to participate in the program. Now, isn't that reassuring? These are the people who are entertaining your children. They're not even performing proper background checks on them. Not great. Not great.
You've got to question a bloke who voluntarily spends lots of time with lots of kids. If you went to a normal bloke and was just like, do you want to spend your afternoon reading to children? I'm pretty sure he'd be like, rather go to the seventh circle of hell than do such a thing.
Well, I mean, there are some altruistic people out there who would like to spend their time doing that would not have ulterior motives, shall we say.
Well, of course,
But
yeah.
when you combine that with the overt sexuality of dressing in drag while you're doing it, that's where it starts to get a little bit suspicious on my part. Because, trust me, I don't think all drag queens are paedophiles or anything like that. I actually know some drag queens. I mean, I lived in Manchester, so of course I do. And the thing that really makes it suspicious, once again, is when they start to try and involve themselves in children. That's when I get a bit suspicious. We've also got the typical brands trying to placate the woke mobs by creating strange and oddly degenerate Pride-style adverts, except this one, as we can see from the footage here, goes above and beyond by just having Pride be what it is on the street, really, being honest about it, and having a bunch of people in nappies and weird clothing and bondage gear. How is this going to sell fruit?
I like how this is kind of damaging the cause as well. They're like, yeah, we're on board, and then they're just here's loads of degeneracy.
Is this secret subversion? Are the people who made this advert secretly based? We'll leave that up to you to decide.
Probably not.
I mean, look at them rolling around in what I can only imagine is the equivalent of food feces.
Ugh.
And imagine what they're trying to say with this advert. Oh no, my milkshake has spilt all over the place. What could this mean, I wonder? Drag queen cupcakes. I mean, once again, this is not making this food look any tastier to me. And you're actively trying to avoid looking at it. So,
I am, yeah.
Are you feeling particularly hungry right now?
No.
No, me neither. Let's carry on. Then we've got stories about people that's another regular thing that's happening quite often recently, which is trans-identified people being just let off because of their identity for being caught with child sex abuse images.
I covered this in the last podcast we did together, didn't I? Where one of the members of the House of Lords wanted to investigate why they'd been let off so lightly for what was an egregious offence. But
just to cover this quickly, because it is important to know these things, Peter Selby, who was 68, was found with over 125,000 pieces of child sex abuse media after a police raid in 2019, some of which depicted children as young as 3 years old. Selby is male, but identifies as a transgender woman, and was told by the presiding judge when he was being charged with everything that you identify as transgender, and that has caused issues for you and anxiety for you, and how you would cope with that if you were immediately sent to prison. You are someone who identifies as transgender, and the impact of custody would be significant for you in the circumstances. So we need to think of the feelings and the circumstances of the poor paedophile here, is what the judge is saying. We need to consider their needs and their wants.
This is collapse of civilization level.
It really
weirdness.
is. It really is. And as a result, Selby was handed a 14-month sentence, which was suspended for 2 years. So, suspended sentence, you don't go to prison, you've basically gotten away with it. Is this going to decentivize people from engaging in this kind of behavior? No. No, it is not. And then coming back up to the most recent stuff that's been happening this Pride is we've got ridiculous things like Amazon workers staging a die-in.
The lamest way to protest as well. You look ridiculous.
You lie down and put trans flags over yourself, which is quite honestly, quite a good representation of the trans community, or at least a certain percentage of them.
Low-hanging fruit.
I know, but it had to be said. They're doing this to protest transphobic books. So approximately 30 employees draped themselves in trans pride flags and simulated being corpses, laying flat on the sidewalk in front of Amazon's Glamazon Pride 2022 event stage, which would host pride-related festivities for staff and the public. Glamazon was originally formatted as GLA Maison to emphasize the gay and lesbian Amazon employees, but was rebranded in 2017 to place more emphasis on all of the letters of LGBT. So these people are the same ones who have previously tried to get Abigail Schreier's Irreversible Damage taken off the platform, and they are actively trying to restrict, in that case, access for a very important book for parents and the children of those parents who might be damaged by this ideology. So if you ask me, in trying to prevent people from getting access to this information, these people are complicit in all of the damage that is caused to the kids.
Oh, it's so depressing.
It really is. According to Long, who was the one who posted all of the screenshots of this, the employees were specifically protesting the sale of transphobic books, an extension of the earlier efforts to have irreversible damage removed. In March, one trans-identified tech employee penned an essay for Business Insider stating he quit the company specifically because of what he deemed anti-trans practices at Amazon, including selling Trier's books. So, good riddance to you. And it's funny how they don't protest other kinds of books calling for violence, though, like earlier this year, where many feminists raised concerns about a book called Manhunt, the plot of which was centered around the brutal murder and torture of women and celebrates the death of Harry Potter author J.K. Rowling. How brave, how stunning, how inclusive, wouldn't you say? And I'll just carry on with a bit of this. Let's get some quick fire ones in here. We've got teachers needing comfort from their students when they come out as a lesbian to their 11-year-old students. Let's play the clip here. This is from sent to Libs of TikTok.
I've been wanting to do this for the past 2 years. Sorry, I'm like so emotional. And I just haven't had the courage to do it out of fear of judgment, mostly from their parents. But I had these kids in 4th grade, and
I think it's
now I have them in 6th, and I'm sending them to middle school, and I love these kids so much, and I trust them, and they make me feel safe, and I know they love me, and it just felt right, and I did it, and it was so beautiful. They had so many questions, which I loved. They wanted to learn, and they wanted to learn about me, and they were so eager, and a few of them clapped, which was so precious.
That did not happen.
And then everybody clapped, of course.
Literally, and then everybody clapped. I mean, if that did happen, it's pathetic. Why are you looking for validation from 11-year-olds? Pretty confusing behaviour, but it just goes to show the mental immaturity of these people, and the fact that this is a teacher as well. I mean, what are the standards for teaching practices nowadays? I swear to God. Let's carry on. We've got more drag queens flashing people, and this was this was from Libs of TikTok, a all-ages family-friendly event. I can see your soul slowly trying to escape your body.
This is my first time back in work for a little while after being ill, and
I'm trying to make you ill again.
Yeah, I can feel my lunch slowly coming back up again.
And people have pointed out to this and responded, but Hooters is a thing that exists, and look at these pictures that we've got of children at Hooters in the next one, John. And it's like, yes.
That's still not good.
It's still not great, but also society as a whole is not pushing this on people. This is a fault of the parents, whereas the drag queen and stuff and all of the pushing of gender ideology is directly a fault of the institutions pushing it on them. And of course, as a result of all of this, you're going to get massive amounts of pushback, which is exactly what has been happening, like in this Vice article where Proud Boys stormed a drag queen story hour event for kids. Yeah, where they disrupted a reading event for kids hosted by a drag queen at a library in California, because of course it was in California, according to police, and now the incident is being investigated as a potential hate crime. But you could be sure if it was J.K. Rowling reading stories to kids and say it was a bunch of trans activists come in and do the same thing, that probably wouldn't be a hate crime. They wouldn't be investigating that. Drag queen Panda Dulce was reading a book to preschoolers near Oakland as part of a pride event when 5 men described as members of the Proud Boys interrupting the reading, according to a press release. The men began to shout homophobic and transphobic slurs at the event organizer and were extremely aggressive with a threatening, violent demeanor, causing people to fear for their safety. Now, I do not encourage this sort of behaviour, but what did you expect when you are pushing this on kids? Expect there to be some kind of backlash against it. And I'd say the backlash is justified. I just wouldn't say go and violently harass people. For instance, obviously, several of the men were wearing Proud Boys black and yellow colours, and one wore a shirt that read "Kill your local paedophile," according to a video obtained by NBC Bay Area. One man repeatedly called the event sexual, while others flashed the OK hand gesture. Co-opted by the far right. Oh, typical Vice journalism right there. Obviously, drag queen performances are sexual. I don't think anybody could deny that with a straight face. And I don't want to read any more of this article, seeing as they seem to have still fallen for the 4chan meme that apparently this means white power. I mean, what a retard. What an absolute retard. At the end of the day, All I'm saying is if this kind of behavior goes on, things will escalate, whether I or anybody else wants it to or not. And positive feelings towards the LGBT+++ community will begin to evaporate, as we have been seeing recently. And to be honest, guys, you'll have no one to blame it on but yourselves. So carry on at your own warning. Thanks for watching this segment from the podcast Lotus Eaters. If you enjoyed that, you can find more and subscribe for our premium content at lotuseaters.com. For instance, Josh and I recently have done a premium video called The Left Doesn't Understand Economics, and if you'd like to find me on social media, you can do so at Getter at Harry Lotus Eater. Thank you very much.